Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another day of contemplating impermanence, which should be every day. So I don't know why we have to set aside time specially to contemplate impermanence. But that's what we're doing. So this is the second day of 7. And welcome to Jens, Bradley, and Sally, and the other people who are not saying anything. Hello, Ella. Sally's asking 8 precepts. I asked Ayasoma and she said, you already did. So you can just redetermine them in your own mind. Redetermine that you're going to keep following the 8 precepts today. Hello, Gita. Hello, Tin. Hello, Ramon, Edward. Welcome. Good morning, everyone, or good evening in the case of a couple of you, possibly. Hello, Boone. So this morning, Ayasoma has kindly offered to share some reflections on Dhamma. Hello, Jessica. So I'll pass it over to Ayasoma.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Bante, for everything and for teaching us multiple times. By the way, today, Bante will be also offering an extra guided meditation. So we will be meeting again at 3 p.m. New York time. So wherever you are in the world, just Google, what is the time in New York? What is 3 p.m. in New York? And at that time, you can just log in on youtube.com/Buddhist Insights/live, or actually just go on the YouTube channel. I think it's easier on the Buddhist Insights YouTube channel at 3 p.m. And Bhante Sudaza will appear out of nowhere and will be guiding us in meditation. But in between all these sessions, just like yesterday, we will be meditating on our own. And actually also here at the monastery, we have a bit of a free form schedule. Or better, we have a schedule, but which is the schedule that we are all following, whether we're here at the monastery or we are somewhere else. Perhaps you're one of our neighbors, perhaps you're on the other side of the world. So we shared the schedule that is that we're all following, but each meditation session is freeform. So we decide for how long we want to do sitting meditation, walking meditation, study, etc. And this requires a bit of self-discipline. So for some people, like we have our resident May, who's always the most inspiring being. I see Jen nodding. For her, there's just one schedule, which is she sits and meditates nonstop until the bell. Then there is the work period, lunch, and then the second period, there's the bell rings, she sits up until for a couple hours until the bell rings again. So she created her sort of mono activity, which we're quite grateful of, because we always have two inspirations, the Buddha and then there's me. Both still only doing one simple sitting meditation activity. For the rest of us, we're doing other things. What can happen is a bit of distress in the mind, a bit of lots of thinking and kind of not being capable of finishing one thing or the other, especially because we've been in this quarantine situation. Actually, this quarantine situation was very interesting for me to see now as a monastic, but also reflecting as a lay person. I was a freelancer for quite some time. So it is a little bit interesting, kind of amusing too in certain respects, because there were a lot of dynamics that people were struggling with, that a lot of freelancers have to deal with, which is basically not going to an office, not having anyone telling you, you're doing this from this time to this time. Why did you take a break that was longer than the 10 minutes allocated? Or why have you not, delivered this paper at the time that you were supposed to deliver it, etc., etc. So basically having a sort of boss present in the room. When you're a freelancer, you have to be your own boss, which normally for the average freelancer at the very beginning means that I'm a little bit tired this morning. How about I sleep in a little bit? Okay, well, so I was supposed to wake up at 7. How about it's 8? How about it's 9? Oh wow, it's noon. Oh, I haven't done anything yet. Okay, so then in my pajamas, I like move myself 60 centimeters next close to the the desk, and I start. Oh, but maybe actually I need some coffee because I'm a little tired. So I start making coffee. Oh, but it's almost lunchtime. So how about I make myself some lunch? Oh, but now I ate. I'm a little too tired to actually like work in front of the computer. So how about I take a little nap? And then after taking a little nap, then you're like, oh, but I think I need coffee again because I'm still like sloth and torpor, etc. By the time you get to do everything, it's like 5 p.m. and you're like, well, tomorrow is going to be the day where I'm going to really work and get all the stuff that I need to do done, which then creates a lot of anxiety because there is lots of deadlines and things. And, even if you slack off as a freelancer, nobody's paying you. So you can't just sit and do nothing. You have to actually produce things, whether it takes you 1 hour to produce something or 1 week or 1 month to produce something, the sort of income is always the same. And I remember actually early on in my freelance life, I met here in New York City one of the people who turned to be one of my best friends, and her name is Samantha, and she's a really incredible, successful photographer, and been a freelancer for quite some time, and was extremely self-disciplined. So she would wake up at whatever time she had decided to wake up, and then she would start putting clothing on, dressing up. Sometimes she would also put makeup on. And basically set up like she was actually going to an office, but the office was like 60 centimeters away from her bed. So she would allocate specific time, slots of time for whatever activity she needed to do. And in that way, even though she started from scratch without going to any kind of art school, photography school, or whatever type of instruction, she managed to be published in pretty much any magazine around the world, and also do a lot of really beautiful creative work. So very inspiring. And I was kind of like, I want to learn from this person. I want to see how I can actually also get some of these skill sets in order to have a productive day. So in the same way, we want to be a little bit self-disciplined when we're doing a retreat where there's no Bante Sutazo that is like, hey, what are you doing now? Go to the meditation hall. What are you doing there spacing out? Hey, what are you doing there? You've watched like 4 guided meditations. Really? Did you need to watch 4 guided meditations online? You needed to practice 1 guided meditation. Like listening to the guided meditation and practice it, and then keep on practicing it. Not just watching and going from YouTube to YouTube to YouTube. So that's, first of all, really the commitment to establishing the mind in allocating certain time and space to do one particular activity. And also training our mind to be fully present and fully focused in that particular activity that we're doing. So what is sort of kind of normal in a recurrent experience is that we'll see that whatever we do for a period of time, then in the next period of time, we're going to keep on thinking about it and obsessing about it. And then we stop doing whatever we're doing and we do another activity, and we're going to keep on obsessing about it, obsessing about it, obsessing about it. So we want to train our mind to actually just be fully present with whatever meditation practice we're doing in the moment, whether it's formal meditation practice, walking meditation, working. And if sometimes we have to work, I know some of the people that are currently practicing during this retreat have a bit of work. So there is some people that have an accounting test, some other people that have to look for jobs, etc. And they're doing that during the work period. Well, make sure that when you're looking for jobs, you're fully dedicated to that task, and that it doesn't protract afterwards. And same goes with the accounting. So I wanted to share a beautiful passage from Ajahn Chah where he talks about this, because we think that we're always so special, that we can't stay focused, and we're like, our mind is a mess. So it's always beautiful when we encounter teachings either of the Buddha, where he talks about him being unenlightened, or also the great masters being unenlightened. So this is Ajahn Chah, how he trained himself. So this was basically the beginning of his monastic life, when he was not terribly well supported. So he had a kind of like a scrappy robe that wasn't fitting him too well, and then he was struggling with the lid of his bowl that didn't have a proper cover, which, by the way, I actually very much relate to it, because I've been struggling with that myself. And so he's trying to he first like kind of puts together a cover for his lid, for the lid of the bowl, but it wasn't terribly good. So the lay people were also making fun of him when he was going on alms rounds. So he was experiencing a lot of suffering due to that. So then he's like, okay, now I'm going to finish this, like sewing all the stuff that I need to sew. And his mind starts obsessing about this sewing all the time. So while he's sewing, he's obsessing about sewing. While he's doing sitting meditation, he's obsessing about the sewing. While he's doing walking meditation, he's obsessing about the sewing. He's constantly obsessing about this thing. So here I'm going to read the passage where he starts realizing this pattern and doing something about it and creating a plan. So he goes, I learned my lesson. I had been blinded by desire, but now I stopped. I worked for a reasonable time and then rested, walked and practiced sitting meditation. This was a really important point. Formerly, whatever work it might be, if it was still unfinished and I put it aside and went to meditate, my mind would still be attached to it. I couldn't shake it off. However much I had tried to lever it out of my mind, it wouldn't budge. So I took this as a mental training, a training in abandonment, in putting down. Whatever I did, I determined not to finish it quickly. I will repeat that. I determined not to finish it quickly. After working on the bowl lid for a while, I would go and practice meditation. But whether I was walking or sitting, my mind would be wrapped up in the bowl lid and wouldn't concentrate on anything else. I saw how difficult it is for the mind to let go. It clings so tenaciously. But I gained another principle of contemplation. Don't hurry to get anything finished. Do a little and then put it down. Look at your mind. If it's still going round and round with the unfinished work, then look at how that feels. That's when it starts to be fun. Go to battle. I was determined not to stop until I had trained my mind to the point that when I worked, I just worked. And when I stopped, I would be able to put the work down in my mind. I would make work and rest separate, discrete, so that there would be no suffering. But it was extremely difficult to train in that way. Attachments are difficult to abandon, difficult to put down. The idea I had of getting things over and done with as soon as possible wasn't exactly wrong. But from the point of view of Dhamma, it's not correct, because there's nothing that you can know once and for all if your mind refuses to stop. I particularly love this last passage. So it's not that getting stuff done is wrong in and of itself. It's actually a kind of good thing to be productive. But it's not particularly fruitful in accordance to Dhamma if we are so obsessed with getting stuff done. Because we don't understand the nature of the mind in the process. Hence, it's impossible for us to move forward. So we can start looking also at our experience. Right now, there is very little to do in these days because we are practicing social distancing. So there's very, very little also movements that we can do within our houses. But sometimes we're kind of like in this constant rush, walking around, running around, always looking, seeking to do something. So where is the rush? Where is the anxiety coming from? So it's clearly not an external thing, but it's something that we produce. So once again, training our mind the way that he is suggesting, and he keeps going, it's very short. This was the principle. Don't do anything with the thought of getting it finished. I love this. This is so beautiful. Put it down at regular intervals and go and practice walking meditation. So really training oneself to do one particular thing at the time, from this time to this time, without wanting for it to be finished. As soon as my mind went back to worrying about the work, I'd tell it off, oppose it. I'd train myself, talk to myself alone in the forest. I just kept fighting. Afterwards, it was less of a burden. As I kept practicing, I found it easier to separate work from rest. After that, whether it was sewing robes or crocheting a bowl cover or whatever I was doing, I trained myself. I could do it or I could put it down. I got to know the cause of suffering, and that is how Dhamma arises. Subsequently, whether I was standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, I felt a radiance and enjoyment that lasted until finally the bowl lid was finished. But alarm surrounds the villagers still looked at me and my bowl with baffled expressions. So perhaps the external circumstances didn't change quite that much, but the internal circumstances radically shifted. And so you see the liberation that arises in a mind that truly understands the mechanism through which we make ourselves suffer, and also the freedom of being able to just dropping something. The freedom, instead of like constantly grasping to it. Oh, I need to finish it. I need to finish it. So I personally benefited a lot from reading this passage, which is why I wanted to share it with you all. I do have, in pretty much anything that I do, I have the syndrome of getting stuff done. I'm very much the sort of efficiency person, very much focused on productivity. And the thing, what Ajahn Chah is suggesting is not that we shouldn't get stuff done, but we should know how to be able to be peaceful when we're not, when we're still, when we're doing something else. So that then our mind stops obsessing with whatever thing we think needs to be finished and accomplished, but rather allocating the time for it in order to be fully present with it and actually being quite successful at it. Because in that moment, whether it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, we know we are fully present with whatever is there, instead of going like, oh, I only have this amount of time to do this, and I only have this amount of time to do that. And that's what creates that constant anxiety where we're always in a rush, even though we're going nowhere. Constantly, oh my God, it's 5 p.m. I haven't done anything. Of course you haven't done anything, because there is both no discipline and no being present fully with what we're doing. Whether it's sitting meditation, whether it's making coffee, whether it's listening to the Dhamma talk, whether it's, we're always thinking about the next step. Whether it's food, then you're thinking about cleaning up. Cleaning up, you're thinking about napping. You're napping, well, hopefully you're not thinking about anything because you're sleeping, but perhaps you're having anxiety, like, oh yeah, 5 more minutes, I should be meditating, okay, well, maybe later. But that's always not being present with what we're currently doing. So we want to really take this as a good opportunity to train our mind in this way. And the reason why I brought up my friend Samantha was because even though she had not, at least in this lifetime, practiced in this way, she had kind of figured it out in a shape or form in a worldly way. So not necessarily, obviously, shaped her life towards full liberation, but definitely created the conditions in order for her to accomplish whatever she needed to accomplish with the little amount of suffering as possible in that particular domain. So we can all practice in this way. Right now, it's the best, most incredible opportunity to do so. To have the support of a virtual group of practitioners. We're so many of us throughout the world that we all know that we're committing to doing this. So you can close your eyes. When you close your eyes, also, like, you could be alone or you could be surrounded by so many people. So you can close your eyes and picture all the different beings that are practicing together in all the different parts of the world, really committed to the schedule, practicing together during this retreat, and build up with that strength, but also build up that self-discipline. You can do it. We can all do it. Okay, so those were just a few words that I had to share this morning.
Okay, thank you, Aya. And at this time, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and type them in the live chat, and I'll read them out for Aya Soma to answer. In the meantime, hello to a few more friends checking in. Hello, Lamu, Ethan, Ron, Victoria, Yenny, Kyle, Tushara, Andre, Jim, and Stacy. So welcome all of you. Happy to see you joining in. Boone is asking, thank you for that teaching. May I know what the title of that teaching, from which book?
Yes, I'll show you right now. It's Stillness Flowing. So it's the life and teachings of Ajahn Chah. So it was put together by Ajahn Jayasaro, who was a disciple of Ajahn Chah and is currently residing in Thailand. And it's really beautiful because it's basically a biography of Ajahn Chah, but with actual extracts of like Ajahn Chah's diary, as well as other monastics who kind of wrote about their experience while living with Ajahn Chah, and also gives you a context of the history in Thailand, etc. He did an amazing job. He worked on it for many, many years. It's very thick, but don't be intimidated. It goes through quite fluidly.
Also, it's a free distribution book, so you can get a copy for free. If you look online, you can find some places that distribute them. In the US, Abhayagiri distributes them. You can also go to forestsangha.org and find other places around the world where you can get the book for free.
Yeah, thank you, Bante. Yes, you can download it. Download the ebook.
And hello, Ramon and Marielle and Sally. And Jim asks, is watching the heartbeat useful for impermanence meditation?
So I personally am not a fan of that technique because it makes me anxious, but I know actually a lot of people that use it. May, I seem to understand, is one of them, and she seems to get great results out of it. So I can't say anything personally because once again, it makes me anxious, but maybe Bante can share something useful about it.
Yeah, I mean, the heartbeat is something that's clearly constantly changing, similar to the breathing. So any object which is clearly constantly changing is useful for recognizing impermanence. So yeah, if again, if you can watch the heartbeat and that works for you, then yes, you can use it for impermanence. And Marielle is asking, in the morning, what we are chanting is the request for the 8 precepts, right?
Yes. So normally during retreats, we take the 8 precepts at the very beginning, and with the intention that we're taking it for the entire retreat. Well, here during regular retreats, we also chant it every morning, but unless people really strongly feel like chanting it together, I think it would be nice to chant other things like the reference.
Okay. Alicia says, ciao, Aya from southern Spain. Kyle asks, I often just listen to the impermanence around me. I found this very useful. However, is this clinging to a sense faculty?
Well, it depends on my understanding with what intention you're doing it. But it seems to me that so sound, once again, it's not one of my favorite meditation objects, just like the sound, just like the heartbeat. But absolutely, there's lots of people I know that is their actually sound is their one of their favorite meditation practices because it changes all the time and it's unpredictable too. So if you see that you receive benefits and you are capable of contemplating and understanding impermanence, then go for it. But if you see that you are then starting to daydream and go like, oh yeah, oh the pretty birds, oh so cute, now I'm singing with the birds, I'm a bird, yay. Oh, maybe I can paint the birds, oh actually the birds would be great in this like movie that I'm creating, or then that's when you're cultivating attachment towards sensual pleasures. That's when you're not really understanding the nature of things, but you are just strengthening your attachment towards what is pretty and beautiful. So always look at what you're doing and what are your intentions when you're picking a meditation object. So there has to be a natural inclination towards a meditation object, but at the same time, you also have to be realistic with yourself and see, what do I need to do? What do I need to work on right now? So, for example, my mind gravitates naturally towards more quote unquote insight meditation practices and less towards quote unquote strictly concentration practices. But I have come to a point in my practice where I feel like I need to actually cultivate more the concentration factor, because that otherwise there is very little let's say at the beginning of my practice I went like this, boom, lots of results with insight practice, but now it's like very slow. But if I boost my concentration, then they can both go up, if it makes sense. So even though I don't sit down and go like, ooh, and now so delicious, I'm going to contemplate like the sort of mindfulness of the body. So the feeling of my fingertips, like Bhante has suggested for all of you to practice in this way, doesn't really excite me to contemplate, point my attention towards the bodily sensations of my hands. But whenever I practice that way, I receive a lot of benefit. My practice moves forward and I dispel more and more delusion, and my mind becomes more stable. So then that supports all the insight practices, including mindfulness of emotions, which are constantly changing. So noticing the impermanence. And then I'm also capable of becoming interested in the subtle impermanence. So also the impermanence of the bodily sensations in my hands, that at the very beginning my mind perceives as way less interesting than my emotions. But interestingly enough, it's a more reliable sensation, even though it's impermanent. It's more reliable than the emotions that kind of are very whimsical. So I find it a very great meditation object to use that helps me and propels me towards awakening. So see clearly, look, analyze your mind, understand in a sort of impartial way. Go, okay, I really do well with sounds in the sense that I have a natural propensity towards it, but what is my meditation practice like whenever I am focusing on sounds? Is it reducing suffering? Or is it creating more suffering, more distraction, more unsettlement in the mind? So then you can assess the situation and decide for yourself.
And Sally asks, in metta meditation, should I focus on the intention, wishing happiness for all, rather than the good feeling of metta? Since if I stay in the good feeling, a thought arises, am I wishing for myself or all? However, if I focus on the intention, it can't last long, not stable. Any advice?
So my understanding of metta is that you use the intention, you use images, etc., to like basically a lighter to spark the gas stove, to use a kind of practical example. So you need to cook something. You use the lighter, brightens up the flame. And then at the very beginning, you're putting it on simmer mode, so that, it starts kind of, the ingredients then start coming together, mixing up, and you produce this, like you keep on fueling it with lots of sort of good wishes and intentions. And then you have generated, it starts boiling. You have generated this beautiful, beautiful wish for everyone to be happy. And you stay with it while dropping everything else, dropping the intention, dropping the images, dropping anything that has brought you there. And you are there with metta, and you imbue your mind with this incredible wish for everyone to be happy. And you stay there and keep fueling it, but with the practice of metta rather than the sort of either images or words that you used at the very beginning.
Sally also asks, why does hurrying the mind cause us to obsess, thinking about it even during the next activity?
Why does
hurrying the mind? So like Ajahn Chah said, like if you make yourself hurry when you're working, then you'll obsess about it afterwards.
Yeah, because you're creating unsettlement, agitation. Like we're trying to develop stillness. Stillness flowing is the exact perfect title of this book. It should give you a direct answer to your question. So stillness flowing instead of anxiety running. That's pretty much it. So the more we train ourselves to be still, the more we train to be calm, then the more we're capable of doing so many things. Actually, if you see the representations of Avalokiteshvara, it's not that Avalokiteshvara is represented like sweating and like, oh my God, and like on, with breathing anxiety. Normally, she's just sitting with one foot down because she's ready to go up, with all her arms doing something, but there's always a peaceful, still demeanor that you look at it. It's no different than the Buddha. It's stillness flowing. So we want to be still, we want to be peaceful, we want to be calm, while also doing things with our mind, doing things with our body. Very difficult, because we tend to think that whenever we're doing something, doing brings agitation, but no, we're bringing agitation to the doing. So obviously we need to train ourselves in order to have stillness flowing.
Yenny asks, what is insight meditation?
So insight meditation is what is normally referred to as vipassana, or vipassana is what is normally referred to as insight meditation. So normally in Buddhist practice, we tend to kind of create two sort of broad delineations of concentration practices, which lead to samadhi, or tranquility meditation, that leads to one-pointedness of mind, and then vipassana, which are the insight practices that lead for us to understand the three characteristics of everything. So anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Impermanence, suffering, and non-self. It's kind of interesting because before, at the very beginning of my practice, I didn't like the translation of dukkha as suffering. And now I love it, actually. It's so interesting. So I was like, no, it's actually dukkha should be the satisfaction. And now I'm like, no, it's actual suffering. Yeah, it's suffering. So I feel like I'm actually like, it's a reflection of my practice really seeing better into the dukkha, rather than before that I was like, no, it's actually still like kind of nice. I think it's just a little unsatisfying.
Jens says, once when meditating on sound, all sound ceased for a period. Now I find when I try to meditate on sound, there is a fear or apprehension. How do I get over this aversion to meditating on sound now?
So repeat again. He was meditating on sound and everything ceased, and then what happened?
So all the sound stopped for a while. Now when he tries to meditate on sound, he feels fear.
That's interesting. Well, then, instead of obsessing about the sound and the fear associated to it, you have a great opportunity to contemplate fear. What does it feel like? It's a great gift. Incredible. You can contemplate, understand truly fear while being safe. It's great. So when you are meditating, you're in a pretty like safe space. There's not much going on. So if the only trigger is the absence of sound, then rationally you know that you have nothing, you're not in danger, but you have a great condition in order to really look at fear, really understand what fear feels like, and then be capable of transcending it rather than attaching to, oh, why am I not having like those great meditations with sound that I used to before? That's just practicing through craving. We want to practice with wisdom. So wisdom is whatever is occurring now is happening right now. That is what I'm looking at. That is what I'm trying to understand.
And Sally says, I think referring again to the thing about getting agitated by hurrying, she says, I did experience the same while I took BF. I assume she means breakfast. While I took
boyfriend.
Hopefully not boyfriend. I'm going to interpret that as breakfast. While I took breakfast at 7 a.m., I woke up earlier as advised last time. However, I was still hurrying to finish it so that I can leave some time for meditation before this talk.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation seems like it excited me more than eating. When I think that later on I can meditate, I lost interest in the present activity and want to hurry as quickly as possible. How to change this mindset?
Well, first of all, it seems to me that even yesterday you had or the day before, I can't remember, but there is something that is recurrent with the breakfast situation where you don't have much time. So first of all, a practical suggestion, perhaps allow yourself a little bit more time to eat breakfast. So eating breakfast, it's not that it should be like the greatest thing that you are looking forward to from the night before, but rather it's something that sustains your spiritual practice. So you want to dedicate time for it, for the sustenance of your body, and also as a meditation practice. So, since it excites you, which is sadhu, 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 it's great that you're excited, that you bring to mind the fact that you want to meditate and you can't wait to meditate. That's brilliant. Do not let go of that aspiration, but also start perceiving eating as a meditation practice. Everything you do should be subject for meditation practice. Every single thing. So look at, like, really eat slowly, take your time, chew everything that you need to chew, and watch your mind. What are the mental and bodily sensations that you're having while eating? Really look at that. Understand it. See it. So then you stop thinking of it as just a purely utilitarian thing, but also you're not looking forward to something that hasn't happened yet, and you're not thinking backwards, oh, I spent too much time in doing this. Just allocate the right amount of time that you need for breakfast and be present with what you're doing. And cultivate stillness also while eating instead of swallowing food and thinking about what you're doing there. Because you think it's kind of like nothing, it's not a big deal, but actually whatever you're doing in every single moment then will reflect on whatever activity you're doing afterwards. So if you actually put enough dedication into eating properly, really meditating and understanding the process of eating, then your meditation practice afterwards, your formal meditation practice afterwards, will benefit from that, from what you have cultivated, from the wisdom and stillness you've cultivated while eating breakfast. It's all interconnected.
And Jim asks, isn't one in jhana not able to hear sounds? I read that in a manual, maybe Visuddhimagga.
That's a question for Bhante Suthaso.
As far as I can tell, you're still able to hear sounds during jhana. They just don't bother you. They don't distract you. It's like something happening far away. It's there, but it has no power over your mind. It's possible that in the formless attainments, there's no sound. That would make sense, since sounds are a bodily thing. So when one is beyond physical experience, then there would be no body and therefore no sound. But as far as I can tell, during the first 4 jhanas, there's still sound. Okay. Sally has another question. She says, yesterday morning, Bhante mentioned unintentional thoughts. We should ignore it. Let it come and observe. Whereas with intentional thoughts, we should stop them. May I ask why there's a difference? Isn't any thought a disturbance in meditation that we should stop? When shall we stop and when shall we observe?
So unintentional thoughts, it says the word unintentional gives you a clue, like you're not actually doing it. So it's an effect. So it's kind of like, when you're feeling strong emotions and you feel like crying, and then you go like, and you're crying, and then you're like, no, I want to stop crying. Stop. Stop. Oh my God, I'm so ashamed. So that's kind of unintentional crying in the way that you are delusional, that you think that you can stop whatever it is, that you can be in control of your emotions. But that is a clear indication that you're not. Because if we were in control of every single thing that we're experiencing, then we could just go, stop suffering. Be awakened. Okay. Nibbana in a second. No. Unfortunately, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not who I am. So there's like causes and conditions that we have to deal with. So there are things that we've done in the past that we are receiving the effects in the current moment. And there are things that we're doing right now, also based on things that we've done in the past. So the unintentional thoughts, it's because we haven't trained ourselves for a long period of time. So without even having to go with previous lifetimes, we can just look at this current lifetime, whatever we remember of it. And I personally can say, yeah, most of my current lifetime, I've spent it not training myself. Yeah, it's about right. Yeah, it's true. So then why do I think all of a sudden that my mind would be all like pristine and peaceful and swift and concentrated just because I want it to be like that, just because I understand that it's supposed to be like that? That's a little bit unrealistic. It's kind of like if I go, oh, I read all these like books and heard a lot of like on running and a lot of runners talking. So why am I not capable of being the first one winning the marathon? That's because I haven't even started running, like actually running and exercising and practicing and doing it. So with everything, we kind of understand that we need to, we take it a little bit more seriously. So we understand that there is a training process. We understand that, I don't know if it's an intellectual thing, we have to go to university, study, take classes, do training. But with spiritual practice, for whatever reason, we're so delusional, we're even more delusional than what we already are. And we think that, oh yeah, I just read a manual, yeah, sure, I got it. Hey, why is this not happening? Because you have to train yourself. So in that, when you start understanding this, then you go like, okay, so there's all this unintentional garbage that is arising, and I just look at it. Like, I let it arise and cease. That's a great way of contemplating impermanence and non-self and dukkha, everything arising and ceasing. But if I see myself reacting, so what I intentionally do, for example, is, oh, I don't like that thought. Stop being there. That's what I'm intentionally doing right now. A thought of hatred appears in the mind. That I have power to go, no thought of hatred. You're not appearing. Stop. Go away. That I have power. And I stop doing it. And then I keep going, oh, look, arising and ceasing of garbage, arising and ceasing of garbage. Then I'm like, oh, I like that garbage. No, stop. You don't like it. And that's the intentional thought. So that's how you start, once again, having a practice that is based on wisdom, because you start understanding, seeing what you have control over and what you don't have control over. What is intentional and what is unintentional. During
one of your animated
I'm Italian. I
Sally wrote, Aya is so cute.
Is it the...
It might have been during the... Anyway, and Jim asks, formless attainments means a loss of sensory impact, right? So I'll answer that.
Yeah, that was your...
So yeah, formless attainments, there is no experience of physical body and therefore no experience of physical senses. Yeah, but that is not quite in the theme of this retreat. So I think we should leave that until after the retreat. So that's the end of the questions. Hello, Jen, saying hello right as we're ending. So hello and goodbye, Jen. So as I mentioned, we will have, Jessica says, we need to clone you, Aya. Not enough of you out there in the world, LOL. Such a great explanation.
That would be like possibly my idea of nightmare if I had to deal with more people like me. I mean, I love myself, but also like...
one is enough.
One is enough, yes. Thank you, though. That's very sweet.
So as Aya mentioned, we'll have a live meditation at 3 p.m. So you're welcome to join in at 3 p.m. for some guided meditation, and we'll meditate together for a little bit. And then as usual, we'll have the 7:30 p.m. session. Sally says, intentional thoughts are unwholesome, hard to just observe.
Intentional thoughts are unwholesome.
Intentional thoughts are unwholesome, hard to just observe.
So you just don't want to intentionally do anything except looking at your meditation object. So if you're looking at your hands, look at your hands. The bodily, do mindfulness of the body. That's what you intentionally want to do. Forget about wholesome, unwholesome, neither wholesome nor unwholesome. It's your job to pay attention to to point your attention and sustain the attention towards the meditation object. So follow Bhante Sudaso's meditation suggestions. So you keep those as objects of the mind, and then when unintentional things arise, you see them arising and ceasing while keeping your mind focused on the object. And when you see yourself intentionally thinking about something, you stop yourself while still keeping the object present. And of course, this is part of the training, then you will forget about the object and run towards one thought or the other, or get averse with one thought or the other, or space out, or get drowsy, or, basically have all the different hindrances that you're experiencing during meditation. And then your job is to get back to the object. So pointing your mind towards the object and sustaining your mind towards the object, sustaining the attention. So it's always that practice. But while you're sustaining your attention, of course, you'll be sustaining your attention while lots of other things are happening, until your mind then gets more and more stable, stillness flowing, and then will be so peaceful that all these things won't appear. All the unintentional, both intentional and unintentional thoughts will start ceasing.
Okay, so that's the last question. So we'll go ahead and end for today. So hopefully we'll see you at 3 p.m. and at 7:30 p.m.
Yeah.
So for now, please go ahead and do 2 hours of meditation practice. Then you can have your work period, your lunch, have a little rest, do some practice on your own, and then see you at 3 p.m.
3 p.m. New York City time, and you can just go on the channel of YouTube, Buddhist Insights YouTube channel, and Bhante Sudhaza will appear.
All right.
For meditation. Thank you. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu.